All right. Thank you, Emily, so much. And happy RDAP, everyone. I hope it's been a really great conference. If you are somewhere on the internet, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Instagram, I'm at HedgyLib at all of those places. And so I look forward to continuing the conversation with you as we keep going. So, a couple of goals for today. I want to, first of all, if you are also struggling with strategic planning or the phrase, I don't know what comes next, felt very familiar, I wanted to validate you. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. I want to talk about going beyond the library in terms of strategic planning and then use myself as a case example of what we're doing at my institution, where I am at the moment, and hopefully give you some ideas. So, as I said, if you also don't know what's next, you are not alone. I realized when I was thinking about this that data services are teenagers. We are in the throes of middle school and early high school. Many of us came to this initially, or data services at our institution really got rolling in 2011 with the NSF rollout. And here we are 13 years later, and we're all flailing around going, oh, okay, this is fun. What are we doing? Where are we going? And why are we in this handbasket? And after the last couple of years, we have survived. Congratulations, we have survived the NIH DMP rollout. And over all of this, our jobs have changed. In the last 4 years, 5 years, your jobs have changed. Mine has too. So with all of this, there's a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of questions happening. And that really can leave you feeling wondering what's coming now. What are we going to do next? Where do we go from here? We have the OSTP to kind of pin ourselves to, but that's going to be a much messier rollout than NIH was. And we have ever-present challenges. This is actually a slide that I did show to leadership at my institution about challenges with data management. Yes, I will get my slides up into the system. I know they're not there yet, so I'm not going to read you all of these bullet points, but they will be there for you to go back to. But often we feel uncoordinated, reactionary. We know people are losing research, they're losing data, or they're feeling unsupported. If you saw Martin Paul Eves' article recently, he just said we have this enormous risk of losing research if one of the publishers goes bankrupt. It's terrifying. Think about how much data we've lost or somebody left and the data is gone. So these are kind of ever present of where we are. And so when we're approaching strategic planning and when we're thinking about this, and this is where my head is right now, really campus level data services planning, we want to start with, but we need to go beyond our core partners. Our core partners will be very familiar. Campus IT, the Office of Research, and the University Library with the faculty, with our faculty researchers who are doing this. But when I put together a list of like other partners on campus, that list is over 25 more people or offices or groups. And I bet when you start to figure out and sit down and map at your own institution, you'll realize just how many parties can be involved. And I'm happy to share subsets of that list if you have further questions. And so I'm going to take you through an activity that I did last fall. This was pretty successful in terms of getting some buy-in, starting to set some direction, and really setting intentions. I got 90 minutes with the CIO, the university librarian, and the vice chancellor of research. We also had an associate dean from the library and an associate vice chancellor. Now, my role is divided. I report to the vice chancellor of research and the university librarian. So 2 of those people were my bosses. But Matt is our CIO. He was our third person. 90 minutes with them. It took months to organize. And so I had one shot to really be like, we have to do this as a team. The first thing I did was give them a definition of what I meant by data services, because there's still this conflation, and my institution cannot be alone in this, where I say data services and other people hear the phrase data science, and that is not what I'm talking about. We have a department for that. That's not me. But really talking about infrastructure, education, and support activities to facilitate research, to facilitate the individuals all the way through the life cycle. I know we have questions about, we laugh at the life cycle. but it's still that very powerful tool. So use a definition. And then the next thing I did up front with them was pull in, we have a new chancellor. I pulled in her priorities and her goals. We will come back to these. These are very familiar, right? Most universities, student success, research infrastructure, collaboration, faculty. These are things, though, that we need to pin. Whatever strategic planning we're going to be doing, we have to pin it back to these 5 priorities. And I'm pointing off screen because my slides are over there. 2 monitors. Now, also, I know they don't know what I'm doing all the time, right? These are people I work with and for, but they are not necessarily connected to me in terms of, sorry, just making sure. They are not necessarily connected to me on a day-to-day level. So they don't necessarily know all the services we're already offering. And so I wanted to kind of quickly rerun through what we had going on. And it's 8 different services. And this involves a lot of different people. So there you can see IT reflected, you can see the library reflected, you can see the research office, but you can see other groups as well that are involved with this. And then I also made sure we talked about success before we really started talking about what comes next. They need to know what we're doing. They need to know what we have succeeded at. This is just 2 examples. One, we were into November, so I gave them numbers from the NIH DMP rollout. I lead a team of 5, one of whom is here in the audience today. Hi, Rafa. Where we partnered and we did really intensive data management support. One-on-one, we worked with the researchers. It was a 5 to 6 hour process to get their DMPs done. We'd done 63 by October. We're approaching 80 right now. And I teach Lib 573, which is an 8-week course. This is actually, I've done 14 semesters now. We just wrapped a session, but I've taught from across the entire university. So I can show the educational need and the desire for ongoing data management and foundational data management education. And then this is something my vice chancellor is really proud of. We do RFI responses. So you see those call for responses and we say, hey, faculty members, right? You'll see a bunch of different names on here. Faculty members, help us write a response that targets what the university wants to say. And then we get my vice chancellors to sign off on those and represent the university. But the people here, right? John Klein, Chris Canich, Angela Walton, Terry Foster, Alyssa Valonis, these are the people actually making these statements to the federal government. And so then, right, we've talked about success. We're excited. They were ready to go. And I said, cool. Now we need to talk about potential areas for data services and what could we be doing? And I wanted to walk them through an example that I truly and utterly thought they would not want to do. That was my own fault. So learn from me. But I wanted to give them example areas and ideas of things we could be doing, but give them a structure to put those example areas into before we actually start building out services. Now, if you've met me or you've met Megan Sapp-Nelson before, you know that the 2 of us work together and we do things like 3 levels on everything. You know, we did it for Roadshow, we've done it for other things. I do it here too. I thought data services would be the thing that they would not go for because it was an immediate cost. But I wanted to present it to them as a way that we could think about initiating a new data service that we don't have. If we aim at this at a level 1 level inform, right? We tell people about where to find data sets, we build a LibGuide because we're librarians, and we invite vendors to come and give presentations, right? That's all we do. That is our data purchasing service. That is a data purchasing service. That is a data service. Level 2, maybe we focus on pilot data projects. I know there's a few that have been around for a while. Or maybe we get an interdisciplinary data set. Gallup reached out to me last year, and that was surprisingly not that expensive. We haven't gotten it yet, but it's on my list. And we do targeted annual workshops, right? Very specific. We do 1, maybe 2. I'm not overpromising me or anybody else that works with me. And then level 3, if we decide this is an area where UIC needs to lead, Then we have options. We do annual data collection. We talk about licensing our things. We collaborate with research development in the Office of Research. We really build this out. And you can take this idea, right? Inform, engage, or lead, and you can translate it to other services. You can say, I can't lead on all of these. There's no way. So which ones are most important? Where do you want me to inform? Where do you want me to engage? They immediately, these three administrators were like, oh, when do we start the pilot project? And how can we do that? And I'm like, they offered me money. We have not done it yet, but I might still. Stay tuned. Because we do need to think about what the benefits, the partners, and the risks are. That's the idea is, if we do this, it could help our faculty. It can help support getting more research. If we don't do this or we do it poorly, researchers are going to be like, well, what was the point? You only picked favorites. You only bought data sets for one person. And there's a lot of people that we need to talk to. I know security has been a big conversation this round. Our CISO would have to be involved in anything related to this. And then after we'd talked about this, again, I had 90 minutes with them. And then I needed to come back out and I needed to kind of get them to, okay, next steps. What do you want me to focus on? Where do you want me for the next year or so? This is what I'm planning. But here's where we need to go. And to do that, I brought them back to the chancellor's goals, right? We started with those, we're coming back to them. And I went through each one and I was like, here's a data service we can target. And they're the ones I wanted to do. I'd given them one that I thought they might go, they might like, they might not like with data purchasing. Now I'm saying these are the ones I think we should focus on. And because I've established that culture, we can do these at different levels. Now they're ready to engage a little bit more with me on this. And then there's kind of that what comes next, right? That conversation was in November. We had another NIH push, and we are currently doing all the OSTP stuff. And then spring semester started. So we've not had another chance to come back together, but this is something that we are continuing to coordinate and bring campus partners together. They know I'm doing outreach and I'm making other plans. And so I will give them, the next stage is for me to give them something with a little bit more about what we already are doing and what my next intentions are for them. And then they can push back. A lot of times it's that they need an idea to push against. As soon as I described a data purchasing service, they were excited. So they needed something to push back against and to be able to respond to and see where we go. And I see the chat is just absolutely hopping. I can't wait to come see what y'all are talking about. So that's where I have gotten to so far with campus level strategic planning. If you'd like to follow up with me, email, online, on various other things, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Abigail. I was taking screenshots all day.
I will get you my slides. I promise I'll upload.
I know, but it felt urgent. So I'm like, click, click, click. Anyway, okay. So now we're going to hear three pre-recorded lightning. Yes, three pre-record. No, two, three. Yeah, just two. Sorry, two pre-recorded lightning talks. The first from Andrea Pritt and Brianna Wham from Pennsylvania State University. Prioritizing enhancements for research data support services in higher education. And then the second, which is Ruby McDougall from Ithaca S&R, reporting on the research data services landscape, findings from an updated inventory of research data services at US and Canadian universities.
Hello all, I'm Andrea Pritt and my co-presenter is Brianna Wham. We are both librarians with Penn State University Libraries and are excited to share our results with you on prioritizing enhancements for research data support services in higher education. By breaking the research process into phases, we are better able to understand where data management takes place during each part of the research project. To understand the different strategies needed to manage data over time, it's useful to examine the role of data throughout the process. To that end, we conducted a series of focus groups for STEM faculty and graduate students at Penn State University to investigate their research data habits. Here's an overview of our focus group demographics. We limited the number of focus groups participants to 8 or fewer and kept the focus groups separated by status: faculty, or graduate student. We had 36 individual participants across all of our focus groups. Due to in-person research not being allowed during the pandemic, we used Google Jamboard to mimic a whiteboard. For each focus group, we created one master slide deck, and each participant was assigned one Jamboard slide from that deck. There were 3 sections to each Jamboard slide, as you'll see on the next slide. Here you can see our 3 sections, top left, bottom left, and the far right. The far right section of the Jamboard is the 3rd section of this slide, where we asked them to draw their research data workflow. After they had a few minutes to draw their workflow, we asked them to indicate where they could have used help along the way. All but one participant consented to us sharing their Jamboard slides, indicated by the X in the box here. This slide shows 3 research workflows from graduate students. You can see that they drew them out differently and included different steps. These students also noted different areas where they could have used assistance. And here are 3 examples from our faculty focus groups. Though we see less indication of needing assistance than in the graduate students, it's clear that the faculty weren't completely confident in their own workflows.
As an initial way to look at these workflows, we decided to look at how many life cycle stages faculty or graduate students diagrammed. Ultimately, what we saw is that they commonly included the same number of life cycle stages with an average of around 7. Trying to dig into this data deeper, we wanted to have a framework by which we could standardize across the workflows. And so we decided to adopt the NIST Research Data Framework. Ultimately, of this framework, we were able to use the phases for plan, generate, acquire, process, analyze, share, use, and reuse, and preserve and discard, as these phases within the RDAP included processes for researchers. First, we decided to look at these stages by role, so faculty or graduate student. So on the x-axis, you can see these RDAP stages, and on the y-axis, you'll see the percent of either faculty or graduate students that said that included one of those phases in their diagram. And what you can see is that all faculty and all graduate students included steps that fell into the generate, acquire, or process and analyze phases. And we think that this makes sense, as researchers are already accustomed to doing these types of steps with their data. Alternatively, very few included preserve or discard, which included things like retention schedules and deleting of files. And similarly, graduate students were less likely than faculty to include things for plan and share and reuse. We also wanted to look at this by discipline. So in this graph, you can see that we have our discipline groups for bio, life sciences, computer science, data analytics, engineering technologies, and physical sciences. And on the y-axis, it is again percent. Each bar is representing one of those phases. And what's most interesting to us here is that the physical sciences were more likely than any other discipline to include preserve and discard steps, and the computer science and data analytics were the least likely to include planning steps. Lastly, in our preliminary analysis, we also wanted to assess where researchers were requesting assistance or help within their workflows. And so to do this, we conducted a thematic analysis where we broke down their steps into the themes represented on the x-axis. And on the y-axis is the count, so how many individuals included requesting assistance for those themes. And what we can see is that data wrangling, storage, and data sharing were the places that researchers needed the most assistance. And so with that, we would like to thank all of you for listening, and we included our emails if you'd like to chat with us more about this research or have other ideas of how we could look at this data.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruby McDougall, and I'm an analyst at Ithaca S&R. Today, I am excited to share some findings with you from an inventory we conducted of research data services at U.S. and Canadian institutions in the spring and summer of 2023. Due to time, I will only present a few findings, but we just published a full report with a more comprehensive description and analysis of our findings, which I encourage you to read. Our inventory was based on a sample of 120 U.S. colleges and universities, 40 R1s, 40 R2s, and 40 liberal arts colleges, plus an additional 8 Canadian Association of Research Libraries members. Our data collection method involved hand-searching websites of universities in the sample to identify formal research data services. Using a basic Qualtrics survey divided into the following sections: library, IT, research office, academic department, and medical school, we collected information on where the service was being offered, what subjects these services focused on, and whether each service was delivered in training or through consultation. A quick note, for our purposes, the category we call research office is a composite category comprised of interdisciplinary institutes, research cores, research facilities, as well as the actual research office, but it does not include the Office of Institutional Research. The inventory yielded a lot of interesting data that we are confident can serve as a jumping off point. However, there are also limitations to our methodology that are important to mention. We captured research data services that were publicly visible on websites. We cannot guarantee that those services listed are complete or up to date, or that we captured every service available on every site, despite our best efforts to be as thorough as possible in our search. In addition, simply capturing whether and where a service exists does not tell us other critical aspects, such as the quality of the service, who uses the service, and the frequency of engagement. Moreover, some schools had clear but pared down service pages, which may have resulted in fewer counted services than schools with more extensive descriptions. So with this in mind, I want to emphasize that more does not necessarily mean better support. Our results show how many services we found, but they do not tell us other important qualitative details with regard to the levels of support available to researchers. So moving on to the findings. Overall, we found that R1 institutions offer approximately 3 times as many services as R2s and 11 times more services than liberal arts colleges. However, there's also a wide variation of service offerings within each Carnegie classification. While 100% of R1s offered at least one research data service, just 6 R1s account for almost 1/3 of the R1 total. Similarly, just over 90% of R2s offer at least one research data service, but 5 R2s account for almost 1/3 of the R2 total. Only 38% of liberal arts colleges provided at least one service, and just 3 schools accounted for over 1/3 of all services offered by liberal arts colleges. With regard to the types of service offered across campus, R1s and R2s share roughly similar profiles. At R1s and R2s, general research data management is the most commonly offered service, followed by statistics and geospatial services. Visualization and bioinformatics services are also well represented at research institutions. In contrast, services tailored specifically to digital humanities, health science, social sciences are relatively rare. Like research institutions, liberal arts colleges offer more general research data management services than any other service type, followed by geospatial and visualization services. Statistical services and bioinformatics services are very uncommon to non-existent. Regardless of institution type, services delivered through consultation are significantly more common than services delivered through training or workshops, with nearly 3 out of 4 services delivered through consultation. All Canadian universities in our sample had very similar research data services profiles, offering general research data management the most, followed by statistics, geospatial, and visualization services in descending order. So libraries remain the primary provider of campus services, offering more than other campus providers across all institution types. But as you can see, the research office units are also very active in this space, and many of the services they offer fill in the gaps in services that the library may not be able to. The dispersed network of services speaks to one of the core challenges facing many institutions. Their research data services are decentralized across campus, and it is difficult for administrators and campus researchers to fully understand what is available to them. However, we also turned up lots of evidence of cross-unit collaboration that is helping to ensure that the expertise and resources of different units are working with rather than in parallel to. I would like to flag that we do not cover high-performance computing or secure data storage in depth in our report. We look forward to investigating these important areas in future projects. Thank you, and I welcome questions, comments, or suggestions for improvement in the Q&A.
Great. Okay, thank you, everybody. We have some questions in the Q&A, and I see that, Abigail, you've answered a couple, but we might circle back to those just to rehash them at the end if we have time. So yeah, I think we're good. All right, well, thank you, everybody. It was so nice to have everyone join us. This was a great session. Let's see, we're moving to a 15-minute break before we close out the summit with the RDAP business meeting and closing. There will be a new Zoom link for the next session, which you can find in Feedloop. And then thank you again to everybody. We really, really enjoyed your presentations and your time and your thoughtful questions. So take care. See you soon.